Hi, my name is Annalise Orthy. I'm 21 years old, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is me when I was little. At this time, I didn't know that I was unique. I didn't know I had a whole identity inside of me that was hard for others to see. I didn't truly realize what being a Latina was until I was in second grade and I found out my mother had an accent and that other grandmothers didn't cook codfish and rice and beans. Home for me is my family. It's the love that is so unconditional that it has crossed borders and oceans. But also, for me, home is the culture that my family has created. My family came to the United States before I was born, and they brought along their culture, their tradition, and their love for one another. Culture and the Latina identity isn't something that we talk about a whole lot in my house, so I thought it was interesting when I asked my mother and my grandmother to sit down and describe their experience.
My name is Maria Lúcia Pântano, and I'm 67 years old, and I'm from Brazil, city of São Paulo. I live in Minnesota for 22 years. Here, my 3 children got married and gave me 9 grandchildren who makes me happy and whom I love unconditionally.
My name is Alessandra Pântano Orthy. I am 43 years old and I've been in the United States for 26 years. I was born in São Paulo and raised in Rio de Janeiro.
For me, home means the place that I live with peace and love with my family.
Home to me means where you feel comfortable and safe, and my home here in the United States is very different than my home in Brazil for many reasons. In Brazil we lived nearby the ocean and the rainforest, and here we live by different lakes and we have a very long winter.
Tinha campinho de futebol.
Ah, eu não sabia.
Ali era a lojinha da sua mãe.
Branca, eu acho, a casa.
Ih, sua mãe vai ficar doida.
E a goiabeira foi embora.
Você tá filmando?
I can define myself an Americanized Brazilian from Latin America.
Let's see, I define myself as American, Brazilian, Latina, and a combination of it. I have now lost my values as a Brazilian, and I have gained a lot of values as American.
Na entrada da nossa garagem. Olha o que tem de neve na nossa primavera de Minnesota. My Portuguese language is important to me, but I have always enjoyed learning different languages. At the age of 12, I started to learn English, and I'm still learning. Sometimes I cannot understand, but I'm not ashamed to ask to repeat it more slowly.
My language is very, very important to me. I consider it part of my identity, yes.
I'm always in touch with my culture through music, Brazilian TV, food, and the internet.
I embrace the Latin culture every day. As you can tell, my house is very Brazilian. I have not lost my Brazilian values. I try to mix and try to meet people from all around the world, and they are very open-minded to different cultures too.
What are you doing?
Mommy cooking.
Seriously? I didn't know you were doing that, Christopher. Oh, I think it's ready.
I added some American culture to my Brazilian culture since I live here, and I really like it. Of course, some things from Latin culture have been replaced. In these 22 years living here in Minnesota, I learned a lot about American culture, and I certainly improved my way to living and facing life.
I listen to Brazilian music, I watch Brazilian shows, sometimes I read Brazilian books, and that's how I keep my Brazilian culture alive.
Oh my God.
I danced this song when I was little. This is what I like. just few negative aspects for me to live in Minnesota. And they are, I miss my relatives in Brazil, but with the ease of the internet, I deal very well with this. I miss the mountains and the ocean, but I really enjoy the beautiful thousand lakes of Minnesota.
And the only negative aspect, I would say, it's the cold weather and being far away from my friends and family.
Fala com a Alessandra.
Ale, eu te amo muito, você é minha única neta.
The subject of race is very complicated. First, I think that should not have this question in any questionnaire or form, because the human does not need to be identified by race. I'm a Brazilian, white in color, Latin because I'm from Latin America, and this not affect me, my life at all.
How do I identify myself when it comes to race? For a long time I struggled answering that question, because when I moved to the United States, the questionnaire was always classified either as Hispanic, and I am not Hispanic, I am Latina, and a lot of times they didn't have that choice. But I feel like now, whenever we fill out a form, I always say I'm Latina. And in terms of being white, in Brazil growing up, I was always considered to be white, and that also has been something that we kind of question. Am I white? Here I would think that 99% of my friends would say I'm not. I'm darker skinned and I'm from Brazil. So that's something that is interesting, and I don't struggle with that at all. I accept who I am. I see everybody equally. So to me, race doesn't matter. I am Latina, and whatever people want to think I am. And it doesn't really affect me every day at all. I fill out forms, and actually I'm very, very proud of being a Latina and being in the United States, even being a minority.
Sometimes I wonder, if I lived in Brazil instead of the United States, if my perception of life would be different. And I wonder if my identity would be different. For me, when I walk into a room, people don't see me as Latina. They don't see a dark complexion, and they don't hear an accent like the one that my mother and my grandmother have. Yet the Brazilian identity is so important to me. The Portuguese language is familiar to me. It makes me think of home. For me, just like my mother and my grandmother, being Latina is who I am, and it isn't another box to check, but a reality that I am proud to live.